You're listening to the Sanditon Chronicles, where we talk all things Sanditon and Sanditon adjacent. Come along with us as we dissect all of your favorite characters, scenes, and dialogue. We have so much to tell you.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Sanditon Chronicles. I'm your host, Maureen.
I'm Janice.
And we are back with our promise episode of Esther, Edward, and Clara. Now, just a reminder, we are talking about them together because we already had dedicated an hour-long episode to each one of them. So their characters are mostly the same. There's some different aspects of their character, but who they are is largely the same. So we're mostly discussing how they've changed. And a lot of how they changed has to do with each other. So
yes,
that's what we're going to dig into this guy. Last season, I did like Claire because I kind of understood where she came from. And with her character, I don't want to say it made sense, but she was a survivor and everything she did was built on the trauma that she'd experienced. So everything she did going forward wasn't to be mean or duplicitous. It was, how do I survive? And so I kind of liked her. But in this, I mean, her character had grown leaps and bounds in this because she saw Esther as a genuine, caring person, as a real human being that she had never experienced before.
Yeah, as time went on, not at the very beginning, but yes, especially when she's having the baby, after she has the baby, it's initially and their whole relationship changes over the course of this season. And really Edward beautiful. Edward just gets more evil. I feel like Justin might have been laughing at us when we were saying how we wanted Edward's character to be better.
Right? That's what I was going to bring up, is because although he was a villain and he was an abuser, I saw that there was a road for redemption for him. I no longer see that in any way. He came at Esther too hard, and you don't come at my girl without me not forgiving you. He hit her too hard.
Well, yes. I mean, he was just totally evil towards her. And it will be interesting to see what Lady D has in store for him.
Yes. And I like that he's coming back, although I don't like the character at all anymore. I don't think there's anything redeeming about him anymore. I don't think he can have, I don't want to say I can't, because I mean, we learn in the Bible, right, that there's always hope. Always. It's never ending. So I can't say he's without hope, that there's never going to be anything unredemptive about him, but it's going to take a lot to get me to even see him as a likable character in any way again. Because it wasn't just Esther he came against, it was Clara he came against, it was his son that he came against, his baby he was using as a prop, as a tool. It was so wicked.
He was such a pretender.
Yeah, and the level of evil that he presented in here, it was so. And I think even Clara said it at one point that it's not necessary what he's doing, he's just being cruel. At some point you're just being cruel, and there's a difference between mean and cruel. He's being cruel 100%,
and so conniving about it. I mean, and very it wasn't just spur of the moment. In the first season, it seemed to me like it was mostly just spur of the moment. But this season, he plans ahead. He is to say he's going after Esther because he wants revenge on the fact that that she succeeded and she just wouldn't take him back, I guess, is why he's really mad at her. But he hasn't really got a leg to stand on. He created the whole situation himself.
And I think really what it is I think that as the narcissist that he is, he genuinely thought, I deserve this. And if you're not going to come with me, then you deserve to be punished for not standing with me. We talked about this in the episode for Edward. I don't think he actually really loved Esther. I think he saw her as useful. So I think he always wanted her in his back pocket. I think he always wanted her as a fallback option. Well, if Lady Denham doesn't give the money to me, she's probably going to give it to Esther. And then if I still have Esther in my back pocket, I can get whatever I want from her at any point in time. I want it from her.
And I think he sees her as an adoring fan, or did, and until
Yeah.
she really learned the truth about him, and then it was all over. So yeah, I agree with you. It's especially conniving in that he got the soldiers to move to Sanditon
Yep.
so that he could work on getting money from his aunt.
Mm-hmm.
It's so conniving, and like in that, guess it was the first dance ball, that when he comes up to Esther and says, "Oh, do you remember our first dance? When they were children, when, I took me an hour to get up courage to ask you." Oh my gosh, it's like, give me a break.
Yeah.
It's
And I was going to bring up the coming to Sanditon too, because Edward, like, he put thought into this, and he knew why he wanted Sanditon. He wanted Sanditon because he wanted Lady Denham's money. He couldn't get Lady Denham's money unless he screwed over Lady Denham and Esther in some way, shape, or form. The only thing he didn't know ahead of time, the only thing he didn't pre-plan, was exactly how he was going to get to them. But he knew if he just got himself there, he could work whatever plan he needed to do, no matter how nefarious. It didn't matter, as long as he was the beneficiary.
And the last thing he expected was for Esther and or Clara to be there.
I think he kind of suspected Esther might be there.
Why?
Well, I don't know that he suspected she would be there, but I don't think he was surprised that she was there, because she did get close to Lady Denham. And so for her to come back for a visit, I think he would have expected her to at least come back, maybe not be there already, but I think he would have expected her to come back at some point.
But I think I put a little bit of oil in his plan, ointment, whatever, fly in his ointment's the term I'm trying to use. Because she sees him for who he is now, and there's not two ways about it. And she has influence with Lady D. So, in that sense, he has to really, that makes him be more conniving.
I think he actually enjoyed that part. I think he enjoyed finding her as not only the way in, or using her as the way in. I think he enjoyed, but I think he enjoyed it not only because he could see, I still can work my magic, I still this, but also because he could punish her in the most horrible way. He delighted in that. And I think that's the biggest thing for me too, is not just how wicked he was, but he delighted in the wickedness. He pushed it further because he liked it.
I have to say that Jack Fox is an incredible actor, because I really like the man and really hate this character
so much. I love Jack Fox.
Yeah, and the little sly little grins he shows when he feels like he's accomplished something or gotten away with something. And when Lady Denham calls him in to confront him about Clara, and he arrives, and then of course, it shows us his true colors, because he claims it's not his baby, and think it's just Clara after money.
Yeah.
And Lady D doesn't buy it. She sees the truth. And I love her line. For once, it would appear that Clara is telling the truth. And then when he goes to leave, and he picks up his hat and his sword and finds letters and steals those letters to and from, I think, I don't know if it was both ways, but
it had to have been both.
Esther's letters. Over time, it definitely was.
Yeah.
Then he goes and bribes one of the servants to give him the mail, any mail for her. How despicable can you get? And that's before we even get to the part about him sneaking laudanum into her tincture that Dr. Foots has prepared to hopefully help her have another baby, which is fairly unlikely anyway, but at least she wasn't getting sick from it until it was filled with laudanum.
Yeah. And there's another thing that Jack Fox does with his character, and I don't know how much was written into the script, because I'm not privy to that information, but I think it's a choice that Jack Fox put into it because it's a nonverbal thing. But you can see, like, whereas Clara, she's constantly looking for an edge, because has always needed to find something for survival. She's always needed to have a plan B just in case. Edward, he is constantly looking for that edge just because he's evil and he wants that edge. And when he finds it, he does this thing where he kind of cocks his head just a little bit to the side, and then he'll stare intently at something. And like when he does that, I don't know what it is about the way he moves his head in that instance, but it says so much. And that's one of the things I like what he does with the character, is that particular instance. Even when he talks to Claire, when he goes back to the cottage and she's trying to convince him to stop giving her laudanum, stop giving Esther laudanum. Right. And he starts telling her, well, what about our son? Right before he says that, he tilts his head to the side and he starts saying it. So it's almost like his tell that something really despicable is about to come out of his mouth or out of his actions.
Oh, yes. And obviously he only asked her to marry him because that's how he thinks he's going to get the money. Because when they're in the garden and he's just found out she's there and she's pregnant, supposedly it's the first he's known of it. And she says, she's pretty evil in that scene, man. The actress who plays Clara, Lily, right? She's amazing too, because she is like, I have all I needed from you, and just think your son may be richer than you. And that's when he totally changes his plan, when she says that. I mean, he adds on the piece of trying to get back at Esther, but he, all of a sudden his attitudes towards having this son totally changes, and claiming that is his son, because he's such an opportunist.
Yes, absolutely. He's constantly looking for that edge. He's constantly looking for a way that he can get that next bump up, always. Yeah. No matter how little he deserves it, he does nothing to deserve it. Even the typical narcissist that he is, he's incapable of loving anybody else other than himself. So it's almost like he can't help but look for that next edge. Like he can't help but look for that next thing that's going to make him above everybody else.
Well, that's how he's operated, obviously, all of his life. And so
he's evil.
Why would he change? Yeah.
Narcissistic abuser.
Yeah, that's right. That's definitely what he is.
And I think in the second season, we see a little bit more of the narcissistic side of him come out, because in the first season, it just kind of seemed like, he just wants that money. He just wants the money. And so he needs Esther because he needs that failsafe. Didn't make him good. He was the villain, certainly in season 1. Absolutely. But you just got like a hint of narcissism in season 1. And this season, it's like a solid blanket wall of it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He's definitely totally a bad guy in this one. He has no redeeming value with that, as the course of the show goes on.
Like none.
So it'll be, I agree.
Even in the military, I mean, even what he does for the military, there's nothing redeeming about that. He hasn't paid his commission. He convinces them to go to a town where he thinks he's going to get money, with, I guarantee you, no intention to ever pay his commission, especially if he thought he was going to come into that money. He was probably going to tug and run. But when he convinces them all to gamble, and he gambles with them, knowing he doesn't have any money, like he's never done an honorable thing.
No, that's right. He really hasn't. And you realize and it reflects on the first season, how you see him to be in the first season.
Yeah.
Now we've learned more truth. I mean, he makes Lockhart look almost like a good guy in comparison. Yeah, because he goes so far over the top.
Lockhart is just a jerk, but he's not evil.
No, he just wants money, and that's sort of like Edward was in the first season. So it'll be interesting to see where they take him in the second season. The second of his seasons. Where they take Lockhart in the third season.
I was thinking Lennox, not Lockhart. So I was getting ready to defend Lennox against Edward for a minute. We didn't talk. We were talking Lockhart.
No, I'm just talking about, bad guy. Even Lennox doesn't look like a bad guy compared to Edward.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Lockhart. Okay. I just had to wrap my head around it for a minute, because I was going a completely different direction. I was like, that's not an accurate description of Lennox. Why are you comparing him to Edward? That doesn't make any sense. I get it now. But I agree.
Well, they're both, they're all kind of opportunists, although at least Lennox is responsible for his men. Whereas Lockhart is just after the money for his own personal gain.
Yeah.
And so is Edward. It's all about himself.
Mm-hmm.
But he takes it to so much worse a level
Yeah.
that it makes the other two look pretty good.
Exactly. Yeah. And I love how the contrast between those three, between Esther, Claire, and Edward, is so stark this season. And
yes,
I love watching, because at first, Claire comes, I'm pregnant. Esther is constantly, Lady telling you she's not, this is not okay. This is not okay. What she's doing, it's a lie. There's a plan. There's a something, she has that apprehension about Clara still at first. But Esther is a character who is good. She's a genuinely good human. She's a genuinely good character. So while she's apprehensive and skeptical, she's still looking to see what she actually is. She didn't decide Clara's bad through and through, so I'm never going to see any good in her. She didn't decide that. She was actually looking for her motivation, her real motivation, whether it was good or bad. She was looking for her real motivation. Once she found it, she poured into her. And I think that was that scene in the cabin where she's talking about being a mother is one of the most beautiful scenes, I think, in season 2, is between those two, when Esther is emotionally telling her, what it takes to be a mom and how he just wants to be held by her. And that's, I think Clara was, I don't think she was ever using, it's George, right? That's her baby's name. She named him George.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think she was ever using him to get money. I think once she had him, she realized she was going to come into money by way of him, but I don't think she was using him for that. And then once she realized that she loved him, it altered everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you see the true nature of who Clara is, because she gave her son, who was going to bring her wealth through him, to Esther. So she gave up everything just so that her son could live away from his crazy father, and in a loving home with people who would care for him deeply.
Yes. It doesn't bode well for wherever Clara's character is going to go.
No.
But it was, although, I mean, maybe, we don't know for sure, but it's possible that Lady D still was going to support her in that other town. And she just didn't want the baby to be there.
Yeah.
It's possible,
She could have absolutely gone to Lady Denham and asked for help. And I think Lady Denham would have helped her because she loves Esther. And I think she does like Clara.
Well, I was talking about Clara.
I know. I'm saying, I think that Clara could have, I think it's possible Clara could have gone to Lady Denham and said, hey, I'm going to give this baby to Esther, but I need to get out of here and I need to live outside of here. And Lady Denham could have helped her get out.
Lady D had already said, you're going to go live in this town, and was going to support her in this town with the baby. And the thought of trying to have this baby be there by itself with her, she just, so I'm just thinking she may have continued to go to the town, but who knows? I don't think we'll see that character next season,
which I'm kind of sad about.
But I don't know for sure. I mean, it's possible.
They did close up that story nicely, and I think Charlotte Spencer is not coming back.
I know that for sure. Yeah.
So
that's right.
It's kind of, I like Clara's character so much, and I would really like to see where she actually ends up, because I mean, we all know that Esther's my girl. Like, if I had to pick a favorite character, absolute favorite character in the entire show, it's Esther. So I would like to see her more, but we know where she's going to end up. She's married to Babington. She's not divorcing him. That's not going to happen. She has this baby. She's going to be a mother. She's going to be a wife. She's going to be in society. She's going to be well cared for and well loved by Babington. That story is complete.
It is. And that's what Justin said. And it is, in an interview, he said, that story's finished.
Yeah.
And so that's why they weren't bringing her back.
But Clara's is not.
Not really. It's kind of open-ended. We don't know where it's going to go. But that doesn't mean we'll necessarily see her again.
Because her storyline may not be finished for us as viewers, but as it pertains to Sanditon and Esther, it might have been finished. It could have been the way it ended. And
Edward, too. I can't imagine No, but I mean her relationship with Edward.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and that's the other thing, is that her open defiance of him shows that she is, and I think that that's not only going to be a turning point for her character as it pertains to Edward, but I think as it pertains to everyone from here on out. I think this situation with Esther has changed her, and being a mother has changed her so completely that she's no longer going to live just to survive, and she's no longer going to feel this desperate need to manipulate and control situations, because
Don't you think
opened her eyes to who she is, who he is.
Right. And don't you think because of that relationships, she's realized that she can love.
100%.
Which was something she really didn't believe. Either
yes.
that she could love or be worthy of love.
That's it right there. Because I think the way that Esther poured into her, and the way that Esther genuinely loved her and cared for her. And it may not have seemed that much, but for someone who's never received it in any capacity, who's always been a pawn or a tool or something to fill a void, having someone like Esther just care for her and be there for her and counsel her and be kind to her, genuine, without an agenda, show her that she was actually worthy enough to be loved.
Right. And the other thing is that even if Crow was still in the series, you might think of something, but he's not, he won't be back. And in fact, he's in a new series. I noticed him.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he's in the
I do miss him.
The prequel to the Game of Thrones. I forget what it's called.
My husband just started watching that.
Yeah, he's in there. He was just introduced barely, but I know he's going to be in there more. So yeah. So the what I was going to say is, because I rewatched it, of course, again, and Esther, I'm telling you, that scene, I think one of the most brilliant scenes between Clara and Esther in this series is the one when she's trying to get her up the staircase to have that baby. And they have that big mirror in the background. So you see it front and back. And, you know, she's trying to get her up, and not only the lines, but just the facial expressions. And when Esther finally says, fine, you do it by yourself, and starts to walk downstairs. And Clara says, stop, no, help, I can't do this by myself. And then you see Esther's face when she says, you don't know what you're asking. Yeah. You know, because of what she's been through with trying to have a child. It is. And the
miscarriages. Yeah.
Right. Yep. It's just heartbreaking.
And she does it anyway.
Yeah. And Charlotte Spencer is incredible.
Yes.
You know, she's amazing. I really want to see her in more stuff. Yeah.
And
I don't know. Oh, wow. I would love that.
She plays one of the stepsisters. She's one of my favorite characters in the Cinderella musical that Amazon put out like last year or something.
Oh, I'll have to go back and look at
the
it.
The musical is so-so, but the movie is so-so, but there's some really nice elements to it, and she's one of my favorite elements to it. Like, she sings and she's hilarious in it. She's super funny.
And it just came out last year?
It came out in the summer. I don't remember. I think it was last summer.
Or the summer before.
No, I think it was 2021.
Well, anyway, yeah, I was struck again when I was re-looking at that. What an incredible scene that was. And the cinematography, and you know, just to look at the way the director went about doing it.
But that, I agree with you, that staircase scene is one of my favorites. And it's comedic in how they're reacting to each other. It's heartfelt in that line that Esther delivers, and the power of emotion that is in that one single line is so intense, and you feel it so deeply. And there's such a sweetness in that she helps this girl who at one point was her adversary and was a threat to her aunt. I never know, like, when I'm talking about the show, I never know if I should say aunt or aunt. So there's a weird mix that comes up when I try to say it. And it looks like I know what the word is. I'm not confused what the word is. I just know how the Brits pronounce it and how we pronounce it here. So there's so much poured into that one scene. There's so many different emotions, and there's so many different things that play out in quick succession, but it feels so natural. The way Lily and Charlotte play those parts right there in that scene. It's so authentic, and it's so real, and it's so good. So good.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. And then she's holding the baby, and you can just see, and if you recall, I think you recall this, I said at the time that baby is going to become Esther's.
Yeah.
And you were like, no way, or not exactly no way, but I just, the way she was holding her, I thought, oh, this is going to be Esther's baby.
Yeah.
But of course, then many things happen before that happens in the story. But it's really interesting that it is Esther who is holding the baby and then says he needs to go to his mother. And she's like, later, but it's
Yeah.
all of that. It's all part of that thing of she doesn't really think she can love a baby. She doesn't think she deserves to.
Yes.
So yeah,
That's what
that's
all of Clara
why.
boils down to, is thinking she doesn't deserve it. And she doesn't think, because that's why I said I don't truly use him as a pawn, because she didn't care for him until Lady Denham was in the room. And then she picked him up. Oh, I love him. And then she'd send him back down. I don't think she was intentionally using him as a pawn. I think she saw him again as a means of survival.
Right.
But she did it that way because she didn't think she deserved to be this boy's mom. She didn't think she could do anything authentically. She didn't think she could do anything right. So just pretend.
Well, and she felt like as long as she had the baby, then Lady D wouldn't just put her out.
It's a mode of survival. Yeah.
Right. But it's interesting that she's the one who picks up on, and I think she uses this as a way to get back at Edward when she says he could be richer, your son could be richer than you. Not because she necessarily thinks or wants to have the money for herself, but just to get back at him. And then of course he clumps onto that and tries to use it to his advantage.
Yeah. I think she's definitely trying to show Edward that I think that's twofold. I think that you're absolutely right. I think she's trying to get back at him. I think she's trying to say, you're so wicked, and look at you're not even gonna get what you want. But I think she's also kind of saying that to herself a little bit, because this baby is so innocent and he's so good and he's gonna be raised right. She thinks, because he's just a baby, that he's gonna, and I think at that point, doesn't she already love him? Yes, because it's after Esther and her had the talk. And she loved him at that point. So it was, my baby is going to be loved and he's going to be good because I'm going to love him so much. And he deserves this. All of this is going to be his.
Right.
So I think that's the other good scene. The other beautiful scene that is in Sanditon is that one at the lunch when I wish I had the script right in front of me, because there was that breakfast, their wedding, or the morning before the wedding.
Yeah. Yeah, that's in episode 6, I think, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's when Esther's saying things that are like, what? And Reverend Hankins is so confused, and Lady Denham's like, oh geez. And obviously Clara is the one who's upset. Edward is relishing in his victory at this point, and Clara is just feeling so conflicted and upset. And when she throws that vial on the ground, it doesn't just say to Edward that you can't do this to Esther anymore. It smashes it like you will never have a hold over anyone else. She broke every chain that Edward held over her, every chain Edward held over Esther, and she knew that she was killing off his chances of being welcomed in any capacity in this family. Because as much as I love Esther, Lady Denham loves Esther. And when Lady Denham finds out what Edward has done to her, it's all punishment from that point on for Edward. Doesn't matter what he does.
And don't you think that one of the things is that Lady D sees herself in Esther?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So when she's doing that, I have that script in front of me if you want to hear it.
just the funny things that, because she said something about a funeral, and it was so comedically timed. Oh, even though I know what's coming, I laugh whenever it happens.
The line about which one? Who said it? Esther?
Yeah, Esther was being spacey and she was saying weird things at the breakfast.
Right. Oh, that too, with Reverend Hank in there. And she says, oh yeah, okay. Reverend Hankins is saying, are we expecting more guests for church at the church? And Lady D's like, oh, certainly not. We want the ceremony to be swift and discreet as possible. And Hankins says, oh, well, to your first point, my lady, I've chosen hymns of no more than 5 or 6 verses, which I shall instruct my sister to play allegro, and I shall limit my sermon to just half an hour. And the lady says, hymns are not required, and we can certainly live without the sermon. And
I love
Esther
her.
says, a funeral liturgy might be more apt. That's a line you're after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what
And
it is, but that line was so perfect.
And then Edward speaks up and says, forgive Lady Babington, Reverend Hankton. She is not entirely herself. We must drink a toast because he wants her even worse off. Anyway, yeah. And I love what Clara says to him, you know.
Why don't you read that? Because it's so good.
Okay. Well, first Clara's, you know, she smashes the glass and keeps Esther from drinking anymore with that laudanum in it. And Lady D says, Clara's right, after last night's debacle, perhaps you better abstain, Esther. And then Clara turns to Edward and says, will you admit the truth, Edward, or shall I? And Clara says, he set out to convince you. He's saying this to Esther. She's saying this to Esther. Convince you were insane. He took your deepest vulnerabilities and he exploited them. To my eternal shame, I have not only remained silent, but I have aided him in his cruelty. And Edward's, this is preposterous. You can't believe her. And then Clara says, I told myself it was for the sake of our son that you stood in the way of his inheritance. We have stolen every letter that Babington has sent to you. And of course, it's not her that has stolen them, it's Edward.
That shows a true change in Clara too, when she takes on that responsibility to herself.
Right, because she had the knowledge of it. We have led you to doubt the evidence of your own eyes. And Dr. Fuchs's tincture, the tincture you placed your hope in, we replaced with this laudanum. And again, she had no part in that. She tried to stop Edward.
Yep.
But because she didn't stop him and let it and didn't speak up, now she's kneeling right next to
holding her hands while she kneels.
Yeah, and Edward's, can't you see she's doing what she's doing with these lies? She's trying to turn us against each other.
He's so into his own self, his own mind. Yeah. He can't hear that Clara is taking responsibility for this. If she was trying to gain something, why would she include herself in this?
No, she'd be putting it all at Edward. That's exactly right. And then Lady D says, you asked for forgiveness and I gave it. You asked for shelter and I gave it. I chose to believe your remorse was genuine. You more fool me. You despicable, the pair of you. I have thought of no punishment severe enough. And then Esther speaks up and says, no, Aunt, Clara deserves no punishment. She is as much his victim as I am. You cannot cast her out for George's sake as much as hers. Yeah, it's quite the script there. And they performed it incredibly.
Yes. Esther's character is such an amazing human being.
Yeah. And Clara shows up. She shows up and stands up to Edward, which, you know, albeit late into the story, she still did. And Esther stands up for Clara too.
And Clara stands up for
Esther.
Clara stands up for Esther before it gets to a point of no return. If she would have gone through the wedding, if she would have gone through, she chose to stop it before that happened, because she could actually, she was intimately aware, because she's staring right at Esther. She gets a little loonier and seeing that she knows at this point for certain. I mean, she already told Edward he didn't need to keep doing it, but watching him gleefully encourage her to drink up, it sent something in her that this is not what I want my son to be around. And I think at that point, she already kind of knew that she was going to end up giving up George. I think she because at that moment she's saying, I did this, because I was complicit, I did this. And at that point, she already loves her son enough that she would do anything to keep him safe and to keep him raised well with things that are going to benefit him. So I think at that point, she's sort of realizing, I can't raise him on my own. What will he be?
Right. Yeah, she, you know, laid on the sword, as it were.
At least she's starting to come to that realization, if she hasn't fully yet. And I think the other reason she confesses is because of George. She wants to be the mother that he deserves. She wants to be the person who is worthy of giving birth to this son that she desperately loves. Right.
Yep. And she does this before before Edward can do what he wants to do, which is put Esther in a mental institution.
Yeah. So although she said, that's what I think is so great about her, is that, and why Esther stands up for her, part of why Esther stands up for her is because Esther was under his spell in the same way. not obviously they weren't giving Clara laudanum, but they were conspiring to ruin her completely. And when you ruin someone in that society, I mean, they're screwed. You don't come back from that. And that's what they were aiming to do. So although they didn't give her laudanum, they were trying to destroy her in the same way that Edward was trying to destroy Esther. So Esther had that intimate knowledge of what it's like to be under his spell.
Well, Clara was right. They were conspiring together to discredit Clara, whereas Edward and, to the extent that Clara kept her mouth shut, were conspiring to really, I mean, talk about ruin beyond ruin.
Yeah.
In prison and just totally take her mental health away between the laudanum and everything else that was going on, removing all the support from her husband, as it were, through those letters.
Yes, but the difference there is that if they would have ruined Clara, Clara would have been done for permanently. Esther had Babington, who they know enough of Babington to, that's why they had to steal both of their letters, because they know enough about Babington to know that he's not going to let his wife sit in a mental institution. And once she's in there, you can't keep plotting her with laudanum. She's
right. It reminds me of that line from the first series where Edward says something bad about Esther. She's dead to me or something. And Mark Stanley as Lord Babington says,
I won't let you be his victim.
That is not the Esther I know. I don't know what he's talking about. That's not the Esther I know.
Yeah. What I do wish I could see is how I don't think Esther will ever tell Babington how bad it got, because I don't think that she wants George to be marred with that. So I don't think she'll ever tell Babington exactly how bad it was. But I'd like to see Babington come back and react to Edward, because there's that line in season 1 where he says, I won't let you be a victim to him anymore.
Right.
And that's exactly, she became his victim again. Right. So I would like to see him come at Edward.
Right.
That's my own selfish desire.
Well, and the script might have been written very differently if Mark Stanley had been able to be in the series. But, water under the bridge.
But I don't think he will even have it. Just knowing what Esther's character is and how her main priority now and her sole focus is going to be that boy. I don't think she would, even if they were still in the show, I don't think she would tell Babington how bad it got. So I don't think we could ever see that, even if it was written separately. I don't think she would have ever told him how bad it got.
But there's going to have to be some explanation, because 1, she's coming home with this baby, and 2, he didn't hear from her for a long time, so she's got to explain what happened in Sanditon.
But that could be as easy as the servant lost the letters, or they didn't know, or she could come up with some. I don't think she's going to tell him about the laudanum. I don't think she's going to tell him how close she came to an institution. I don't think she's going to. I think she might even leave Edward out of it completely, because she doesn't. I mean, imagine you're Babington at that time and you're bringing home Edward's child.
But who's the father of the child then?
She could just say it's Clara's.
I don't know. I think she'll be more open than that, but who knows? That script wasn't written.
It is in my head, though.
Well, fine, you can write it.
Does that count as fact?
You can write that scene when they're all done with the show. You can add in the scenes you're missing.
Okay, I'll do that. I wish they would do that. Just, you don't even have to film it. Just write it so we have it. But I think that there were some people last year when I did the Clara episode. I don't remember if you and I did that. Do you and I do that together, or did I do that one on my own?
I think you did that one on your own, but I can't swear. I'd have to go back and look.
Well, I remember a lot of people were saying, no, Claire's not redeemed. No, Claire's not good. She's not good. And I hope people can see now what I was talking about. I think they have to see what I was talking about now. That this is who she ever was. It just took the love of someone who didn't. Esther didn't have to be kind to her. Esther didn't have to be nice to her. Esther did not have to help her. Esther did not have to convince her that this boy was worth all of her time. I mean, Esther could have schemed to take this baby on her own, but instead she tried to convince Clara how to love him and keep him. She didn't have to do any of that.
Well, because, and I don't think she would, because she knows how much she hurts from having lost a child,
Yep.
with a miscarriage. And then she wouldn't wish that on her worst enemy, as it were.
Yeah.
And at one point she saw Clara as the enemy. In fact, even the beginning of this season, but things changed after the baby came, after Clara responded to her encouragement to love him, and to care for him.
Yeah. Even a little before that, I think she started to see that Clara wasn't an enemy, that Clara was a desperate girl who has known nothing but desperate circumstances. I think she started to understand that. And I think that's why she was able to help her through that birth. But that's all it took for us to see who Clara actually is, her true character. It took Esther loving her and being kind to her when she didn't have to be.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, I love that line. I love the fact they set it up so well that it was Esther helping Clara, because Lady D talked about the fact that she'd let all the servants have the day off. And then Esther talks about the fact that, of course, you're doing this when there's no servants here, Oh, and of course, the best.
I love it.
The best line in that staircase is when she's trying to get her up, and she says, yeah, you can't have this baby on the stairs. It was already has non-auspicious beginnings when it was
on the floor.
Conceived on the floor. Or I didn't get the line exactly right, but you get the idea. Yeah, it's interesting.
I love the snark that Esther's written with. I think that's why I like her so much. It's her snark. There's more to it than that, but I'm really excited to see next season the punishment that Lady Dunham gives her, because that's another scene I love, when Edward, not Esther, I meant Edward.
Him.
Yes,
I meant Edward. Yeah.
I love that scene where she's sitting at her garden bench and he comes back and she's just so triumphant. Like, she's just like, I've been sitting here waiting for you.
Yeah.
And then he said he thought he would prefer life with her to a life in the military or something like that, because he makes it seem like it was his own idea, that he wasn't kicked out of the military. He chose to leave. Yeah. And then she says, we'll see. Because what did he said, a life with you can't be as bad as life in the military or something like that, or life in jail. And she says, we'll see.
In prison or
I don't remember I should have written down that line, because that's one of my favorite lines. Just Annie Reed. I mean, it doesn't get better than Annie Reed. She's so good at what she does.
Oh, I think I didn't get that line written down, but there's an earlier one when he shows up in the camp and Carter says, short honeymoon, Denham? And Edward says, I came to the conclusion marriage isn't for me. And he says, Denham, your aunt writes. Oh, then Lennox says, Denham, your aunt writes to inform me of your recent conduct and that you have no means of paying for your commission. You are a disgrace. I mean, and when he takes those things off his shoulders, whatever they're called, I'm not going to say that. It's kicking a dog that's down, because he got kicked by what Tom did in defeating him. And so he's just passing it along.
Yep.
It all rolls downhill.
I do. And even though it's like kicking a dog when he's down, I was like cheering it on.
Well, yeah, because he was kicking everybody else along the way this season, I mean, Edward he was just as despicable as you could be. Yeah. So
what Edward says to Lady Denham, I pulled it up here.
Oh, good.
He says, having had time to reflect, I've decided to accept your offer. And she says, I thought you might.
Hey, she knows she wrote the letter.
He says, it seems marginally less horrifying than debtor's prison. And she says, oh, I wouldn't be so sure.
Yeah, because I'm looking forward to that.
And then she says, and with Esther and Clara safely dispatched, you so have my undivided attention. He says, where's my son? She says, he is on his way to a better life, far removed from his wretched father. So there's going to be a lot, I hope, fun for us as viewers to watch Edward get his just desserts. Yes. It's about time he's punished for what he's done.
And he can't hide behind a baby he didn't really love anyway.
No. Yeah. And I think, and that was my fear. I never really thought that that the baby wasn't necessarily going to go with Esther. My fear is that it will give Edward a claim to her always. That was what I was worried about. And I think he's going to try that, but I think I feel better about it now, knowing that Charlotte Spencer isn't coming back, because that means that she will no longer be a part of the story, which means that Edward will no longer get to her. So
Right.
that's, I'm
Yeah,
okay with it now.
Yeah. So curious to know where they're going to go with that.
Because
I'm
he
just,
can't reach out to her anymore and use that baby as leverage or try to get it in some way. He's
Right.
not, if Lily's not coming back, he's not going to have Clara to latch onto to get to Lady Denham. So he's going to try something. What I would like to see next season is I would like to see Lady Denham just continually beat him down. That's what I would like to see.
well, she might require him to help the Rankins in their church,
The
or
Hankins.
the Hankins. I said Rankins. Sorry, I've known Rankins. I haven't known any Hankins. Yeah, might have to help the Hankins. I want to step back while I'm thinking of that. In that I don't remember which ball it was, but in the one ball where Esther, I think it was probably the first one, where Esther is talking with Edward. Edward comes over, and she says something about him dancing, and he says, "Oh, do you want to dance?" And she says, "Not me. But I want you to ask, if you're really this changed person, I want you to ask Miss Hankins to dance." And then there, Lady D's asking her why she would do that. Wasn't it that who asked her? Anyway, and she's explaining that because she did a kindness, and so she's trying to repay the kindness. And it was so wonderful to see the smile on her face, to be dancing on Miss Hankins' face. And that was to see Esther go out of the way. Yes, it was a win-win for her, because it put Edward in a position he wouldn't want to be in, and it did a nice thing for Miss Hankins that she got to do. Yeah.
And that's the kind of person Esther is too. I mean, Miss Hankins didn't know Esther put him up to it. Esther got no clap on the back for that. No one knew she did that other than Lady Denham and Edward. No one knew, but she was doing it to be kind. And it's almost like she didn't want people to know she was that kind, because I mean, she's ever Esther. So it's, and even when she went into the church, she was asking, I forget what she was asking Reverend Hankins when she went in there, but that was when Miss Hankins said, "Oh, I forgot to tell her about the party, whatever it was," and told her about the midwife. Even during that conversation, Esther, while absorbing all this information, thankfully absorbing this information, still kept herself a little closed off, and then was repaid that kindness without anyone knowing she repaid the kindness. So it's just it reminds me of in the Bible when they're talking about the Pharisees and how they have these long-winded prayers because they want everyone to know how great and religious and how amazing they are. Esther's the opposite of that. She doesn't need anyone to know that she's kind. She doesn't care if people know that she's repaying this kindness. She doesn't care if people know that she is doing something nice. She's just doing it because it's the right thing to do.
And as you're talking about that, I'm just flashing back to season 1 when they're listening to Reverend Hankins' sermon about the flowers, and the look on Esther's face is like, she is so disgusted. And I think Charlotte was also appalled, but Esther was disgusted.
Esther was openly disgusted.
Yeah.
Charlotte was still trying to make some sort of excuse of, well, it was okay. Esther was like, no, that was dumb. That was ridiculous. That was stupid.
But she had a look on her face too, like, I don't think so. Yeah. It was interesting. So yeah, we'll miss Esther for sure.
I'm happy though, knowing that I'm satisfied knowing that her story is not only wrapped up, but wrapped up nicely, happily, in the exact way that she deserves.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think they did it justice. I think they're doing a good thing. And we won't have Esther, but we will have Lady Susan.
Yes.
So that will be good.
Do you think Claire will be back? I don't think she will. I hope she will, but I don't think she will either.
I don't think she will, because I don't think they would bring her back and get her around Edward. That would be not good.
Yeah, especially since she just had that redemption. Why put her back in that path of getting caught up with him again?
I just really doubt if she is there next season.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't heard officially one way or the other, but I would be surprised.
Yeah, I am excited to see how Lady Denham. I hope she stays true to her word that it's going to be worse than Debtors Prison.
Yeah,
I really hope so.
That she had so many great scenes this season.
She did.
Yeah, we're gonna have to talk with her about her some more in the future.
She is coming up.
Good.
All right. Well, I think that just about covers all the stuff on Esther and Clara and Edward. I think.
Yep.
I think Esther is happy and complete. I think Clara is redemptive, and so I think we can assume she's going to get a happy ending whether we see it or not, because she understands what's worth it now. And maybe because in my head, because it's an Austen inspired story, now that Clara has found her redemption, she's going to find a man who is well off and nice and genuine and is going to marry her and make her happy. And Edward, I hope to see him punished repeatedly next season.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, we hope he has the bad end of the stick, as it were.
That would be great. If you could get that done, Justin, that'd be, I know it's already filmed, but I'm hoping that you did justice to us by doing that for us.
Probably.
So next week, we're going to be talking about Annie Reed, or Lady Denham, as it were. Stay tuned for that. If you haven't watched the rest of we've been doing character spotlights this whole season so far. We did our recaps of episodes 1 through 6. If you haven't seen those, go back and watch those. We did a very in-depth recap after, I think they were all like an hour and a half long after every episode, because we can't not talk that long after it's that fresh. We have things to say. And since then, we've been doing character recaps. So soon we're getting to the relationship dynamics now that we've done all that. I think we've done all the new characters so far, right? We've done Fraser, we haven't done Lennox yet.
Nope, we haven't.
I think Lennox is actually going to be next week. We'll do Lennox next week. And then after that will be Lady Denham. So we're moving into relationship dynamics now. Hopefully we'll get some interviews for you in the near future. Well, we're not sure what that looks like, but check out our Facebook group, the Sanditon Chronicles, Sanditon Family Fan Club, and you can find us all over social media as well. If you have any questions or you want to reach out to us or say anything to us, please reach out to us at our email. We list all of our information at the end of the show. And if you have emailed me, I haven't responded yet. I haven't responded in like a couple of months. I have read them. I just haven't responded to them yet. I will take care of that eventually. Maybe this weekend. Who knows? So until next week. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Are you craving more TSC content? Head on over to our social media accounts. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and our Facebook group, the Sanditon Chronicles, Sanditon Family Fan Club. Also, check out our website, thesanditonchronicles.com. Of course, we want to hear from you. We want to know what you want to hear and what your thoughts are. Email us at the.sanditonchronicles@gmail.com. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Tune in every week for new episodes.